Hello, hello! Welcome to the Moana Adams podcast. I'm your host, Moana, a 15-year-old with a ton to say about mental health, wellness, self-love, and a whole lot more. So let's get into it. Hello, hello! Happy Monday! Welcome to episode 28. Today, we have another guest, and we're talking about anxiety, which is kind of a serious and sad topic, but we're gonna try and keep it light and happy, and she's gonna introduce herself and give us a rundown of who she is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colis. I am 18 years old. I'm still in the teens, and I would describe myself as a optimistic, outgoing 18-year-old who is ready to take on life.
You're much more prepared than I am. I still have 2 years, and my 16th birthday is in a month, and I'm terrified to turn 16. I'm excited, but not ready.
Oh, girl, you're gonna love the age of 16. Like, if you're loving 15, hopefully you are. You'll love 16. I know I did.
I like 15. I want to stay 15 for a little bit longer. I feel like this year went by crazy fast.
Yeah, same. Me with 17. I wanted to stay 17. I was up until midnight before my 18th birthday. And I was like, I don't want to turn 18 because I love 17 so much.
I feel like if I wasn't I've never had a birthday party, and this year I'm doing one for the first time. And so if I wasn't having that, that's probably exactly what I would be doing this year.
Gotcha. Oh, that's so exciting for you, though.
Yeah, I feel like 16 is so cliche, teenage, coming of age movie, and you have to really make it count. And there's so much pressure on it, but I'm like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
For real, it's definitely prime time.
And you also have a podcast.
Yes, I do. It is called This Girl. I initially started This Girl because of a different podcast that I was listening to. And man, I didn't even really think of it when I was naming it, but I don't even remember what the podcast was called. It was just one episode and she said something about let's turn that girl into this girl. And I just I named it that and I'm like this is such an original idea. And I listened back to that one episode and I went, "Oh my goodness, I totally copied her." But her podcast is completely different, named different. It was just a small sentence. Anyways, yeah, I just want to talk about motivation on there and how to be a better self.
Yeah, I love it, and I love the name. I feel like I get worried sometimes when I see a reel and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do that reel on my account. And I'm like, oh, but I'm straight up copying this. And then I'm like, nobody has fully original ideas anymore, honestly. We all are just stealing from each other a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna do our currently lovings and grateful so that we can get into the bulk of the episode. My currently loving is Arctic Monkeys.
Ooh.
I have been loving them recently. I listen to so many different types of music, and they're coming to Atlanta in September, and I want to go to this concert so badly. I texted all my friends. I'm like, all right, who's going with me? And everybody said they're coming. So there's going to be 6 of us, hopefully, if everybody is able to come. And I don't know, I love it so much, and it makes me feel like their songs are very strong and powerful. And I mean, a lot of people have been complaining recently that people who discover music on TikTok aren't real ones. And I'm like, but that's the only way to discover music now.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, honestly, I hear Arctic Monkeys and I think about one of my old teachers and he loved them so much. So that's awesome. My currently loving is the newness of spring. I just love spring. I've always loved spring. Like, all the snow is melting away, which I love snow too, but it's just you start seeing the green and you're feeling like summer, but spring is definitely the beginning before summer.
Yeah, I feel like, where were we? We were actually in Idaho in the spring, and Wyoming and all of those states last spring. And I did not like the spring at all before then, because Georgia, the spring is just yellow pollen everywhere.
Ugh.
But yeah, it's awful, and everybody has terrible allergies. But up north, it's all the baby animals are out. Baby moose, we saw so many bear cubs. while we were in
Oh,
the
I bet.
Tetons, and it's just so pretty.
Yeah, I'd love yeah, that's the reason I love spring, like, all of the outside nature blooming.
Yeah, and, like, it's not overly hot, but it's not freezing cold anymore.
Mhm.
Okay, my grateful is the Mexican restaurant that we always eat at as a family. I did not go tonight because I was editing last week's episode, but my family brought me home a churro queso and it was delicious and I like just ate the whole thing like not but 8 minutes ago. And I'm very grateful for that restaurant because where we live, we're like not all the way country, but we're like pretty far out of Atlanta
Mhm.
and there is like no good food. They
Mm.
just opened a Chick-fil-A in our city, like, not even last week was when they opened it on Thursday, and it's Monday, and, like, everything else is not good. So I really love and am grateful that we have that restaurant.
That's awesome. My grateful is the late snow season. So when you, like, first messaged me about, like, collaborating for a podcast episode, I was, like, thinking about my gratefuls. You're like, "Have your grateful prepared?" And I went, "What is my grateful going to be?" And it was, like, here in Idaho, we had a lot of snow, like, all the way until April. Usually, like, the snow starts melting away by, like, mid-February, and we had our first snow day in school in April. But yeah, so and I saw a
Wow.
lot of people like posting on their like Instagram and Snapchat stories saying like, "Oh my goodness, when is the snow going to go away? We're tired of the snow." And like jokes about like Frozen, like Elsa from Frozen, like someone go and get Elsa. She's like getting Idaho. And but like so many people were like, "We don't want snow anymore." And I went, "You know what? Like I am so grateful for the snow. Like sure, I bet it's cold and for like the people that are outside, but, it's something to just, like, take in, like, Mother Nature is, like, going around blessing us with snow."
I love that. I was not a fan of snow either before we went on the trip, and I think it's because I'd never seen real snow. Like,
Mhm.
in the South, sometimes you get snow, but it's not real snow. Not like the Tetons or in Idaho or Colorado. Like, it's not real snow. It's just like slush and black ice.
Yeah.
But, like, there, like, it's real snow and you can, like, really play in it and, like, have fun and, like, have those adventures.
Yeah, for real.
Okay, let's get into all this because it's not a ton today, but we have a good bit to go over.
Yeah.
And the first thing we're gonna talk about is like you specifically, because like everyone has a unique journey, and like obviously yours is no different. And like I'm really excited to hear like your story because I know you told me like it's very unique and all the things.
Yeah, so, man, I don't even know where to begin, but I just remember my very first what I would consider anxiety, was when I was in 3rd grade, like, my 3rd grade summer going into 4th grade. I was playing outside and it was like really hot and I was running around. So I started feeling a little lightheaded and I was like, oh, it's like because I'm running around, I haven't gotten water. So I go inside, I get some water, and I still feel like heavy, but like I'm more or less more so breathing heavy and dizzy. And I go, oh my goodness, like it's not going away. Like by now it should have been away. And I'm walking around like the house, and then I lay down for a little bit and I'm like, what is going on? And my aunt was like, are you okay? And I said, I don't know, I feel like I'm in a dream, it feels really weird. Where's my mom? Like, can I call my mom? Because I was at my aunt's house at the time. And so she calls my mom and she's like, Deanna says that she doesn't feel well, and like she says she feels like she's in a dream. And that's how I've always described my anxiety, is like I feel like I'm in a dream because it was so indescribable, like the feeling that I had. And going on to 4th grade, that was the only time I had felt that in that year. And then once the school year started, I started to progressively get worse and worse and more anxiety attacks, but I didn't know what they were. It was like some sort of dissociation from life. Like, it wasn't just this feeling of panic and worry. It was more than that. It was like I just didn't feel like I was in my own body. Like, it was really weird. As a 4th grader especially, like, I'm supposed to be playing with Barbies and not really doing other things, uh, like worrying about anxiety. All of 4th grade, I had anxiety, but I still hadn't gotten a diagnosis. 5th grade was definitely my worst year because I was facing it every single day. It was random, like moments I would feel this dream like reality, and then I would call my mom almost every week, like, "Mom, come get me. I don't feel okay." Then we started going to doctors, and they were doctors that were like from the clinic. Like, we'd go and just kind of like a checkup type of thing, and they like did blood tests and just any test you could really imagine for what my symptoms were. And they said, "We can't find anything." And I was so frustrated with that statement because I knew that it was like something wasn't right. And then I remember one time we were at the doctor's from the many times that we went, and the doctor said, "We can't find anything in the test, but the only thing I can really think of is that she's just seeking attention." That statement made me so mad because
No way.
yeah, I was like searching for help. I'm like, this is more than beyond like running outside and feeling hot and sweaty. And I was like, there's no way. The doctor said she's probably seeking attention. I knew something was wrong with like my body, my health. Something had to be wrong. And
That makes me
yeah,
mad for you. Like, that makes me angry for you.
yeah, I was like, there's no way he said that because he said we've done everything that we could. And I was just so mad. Like, it, my frustration will always go back to that moment. So 5th grade goes by, it doesn't really get any better. 6th grade does get a little bit better. I think I just needed kind of the break from 5th grade because I had a really mean teacher 5th grade, but that's a different story. And then 6th grade, it was a new transition. It was like I had different teachers, walker, kind of the transition into high school type of vibe. Um, and I started talking to the school counselor. The school counselor was not the person who actually helped me. It was the translator because my mother would come to these like sessions with me, and the translator said that she used to deal with anxiety. So she was the one who introduced me to the term anxiety. And I was like, "Well, what is that?" And she was like, "Well, it's like when people feel it in different ways, but the way you're describing it is the way that I feel it." So then she started telling me all about like her anxiety journey, and it was similar to what I was like describing. So she takes me to this other doctor, and this doctor is like an all natural, vitamins, nutrition, and he doesn't, his like motto, he's a silly man, but his motto was like, any medicine with chemicals doesn't work. He was very extreme on that point, which, people have their different opinions. And I'm like, you know what? He
Yeah,
thinks that. But yeah, this man, this doctor, he ran these different tests, asking me different questions. He drew some of my blood and he found that I had some sort of like parasite in my blood that was causing these anxiety attacks. I don't exactly remember what happened. Like, I was 12 at the time he used these
right.
terms, but like overall, like, it was anxiety with like that caused that to happen in my bloodstream, something like that. It was weird, but he said like, you have this in your blood, yes, but you also have like anxiety, like it's in your head too. He gave me like a lot of vitamins and the things to take, all natural. Like, he said, this will help you with this, explained what every single medicine was going to help me with. And he said, like, anybody can take these and won't do, and like, it won't hurt anyone. Like, it's just, they're just vitamins practically. And yeah, that's where like I started getting better. If I didn't mention before, the clinical doctors told me that like I had to take these anxiety medicine prescriptions, which were like the just medicine, but
Right.
I stopped taking those, which I do not advise for anybody who is listening who like their doctor is telling them to take those, and if it's working for them, go and take those. But yeah, I stopped
Yeah,
taking.
don't just
Yeah,
stop taking your
don't
meds.
stop taking your medication. But that's what I did because I was the pills for me weren't doing anything, if not probably making it
Right.
worse. Everyone has different, reactions. But yeah, that's like my anxiety journey. It was more so like the feeling of like random attacks where it felt like I was not in my own body, irrational fears, and like just a dissociation from reality, like I said.
You know, it's really interesting. I follow a therapist on Instagram, and there's actually a word for that, like feeling like you're out of your body, and it is like a major symptom of anxiety. And a friend of mine gets that too, and I can't remember what the word is. I'll have to look it up later. But there is a word for that, and it is like a symptom. Like it's not super common, but it is something that people get when they have anxiety. And I think it's really interesting that, you were like going to the clinic saying you didn't feel good, but you didn't understand because that's what happened to me. Like most of elementary school, that's how it was for me. In kindergarten, almost every single day of kindergarten, I would go to the nurse's office and say I had a stomach ache
Hmm.
almost every day without fail. And my teacher, I mean, she did not like me, like because I, would do this. And I mean, I was in kindergarten, I didn't understand what I was feeling, and my mom, from kindergarten to, like, 5th grade, a little bit after that, we would go to doctors all the time, and, they tried everything, all the blood tests like you're talking about. They thought maybe I had celiac because my dad's allergic to gluten, but it wasn't that. They thought I had asthma, I was on an inhaler for a while, not that. Allergies, I mean, everything. I would get chest pains, and I couldn't explain it. I just knew what I was feeling. And like it was like this pain where like I couldn't breathe almost. Like I couldn't get that like when you have a deep breath and it's like very satisfying.
Hmm.
Like I couldn't get to that. And then I moved schools and school systems in 6th grade and it stayed for a while, but like I learned about like what anxiety was and I realized like, oh, hey, maybe that's what's going on. And I really relate to like your story and like all of those doctors saying all these things and you know people telling you you're just looking for attention when like it's not, that's not what it was, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, oh man, I hardly ever meet people that like have anxiety, and like don't take this the wrong way, but I'm just so happy that there's somebody that I can like relate to because it's
Right.
just something that's like so heavy in a sense, like to one person, right? But it's like you can't reach for help because you don't know who.
Right. I Yeah, it's just it's crazy to think about that. And like we didn't talk about this beforehand, but somehow it ended up being so similar for us, and that's really crazy to me. um Yeah, and it took me a long time to realize that, and I've never had anyone diagnose me with anxiety. It's just like it's so obvious now to me that's what it was. And I remember like having my first attack in I didn't really have like a full anxiety attack until like middle school, and like I had a migraine with it, and I get that feeling of like pins and needles but like all through my body.
Mm.
And there's another word for that that I can't remember, but it is like a symptom of anxiety, and it'll get in my face and everything, and it's just crazy how everyone's body reacts differently.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's like a long list of symptoms, and it's like not everybody has the same symptoms. Some people have like completely different groups of symptoms and still have
Right.
practically the same thing.
And I also think that, we talk a lot about Gen Z, and I've seen a lot of this, the most anxious generation. And I did some research before this, and 42% of Gen Z has received a mental health diagnosis, and anxiety is the most common.
Mm. Wow.
And that doesn't include everyone walking around who's like technically undiagnosed. Like I've never been diagnosed, so even though like I know like that's what it is, I'm not in that statistic. And
Yeah.
there's tons of people out there like that. And when we say it's the most anxious generation to date, I do think that we have these stressors that others didn't. But I feel like we also have to consider that things have developed and changed a lot. When our parents and our grandparents were younger, anxiety was just fear, depression was just sadness. Like mental health wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I also read that straitjackets were only being used 67 years ago. Like they didn't stop using straitjackets until like 67 years ago, which is
That's
crazy
yeah, that's scary.
and a little bit terrifying. And like I feel like that shows like how quickly there's been a shift in like the fact that mental health is even exists. Let's do how are we going to relieve this anxiety and what helps us, and hopefully it'll help you too if you are a very anxious person.
All right.
And I have you set to go first. So we each brought three things to the table, and
Yes.
you're going to give us our first one.
Yes. So my first one is straight up crying it out because that feeling you cannot suppress it. You cannot like make it go away instantly. So, out of all of my attacks that I've had, a majority of them have started off with crying, going to the bathroom, crying it out, and just letting it out.
Yeah, I feel like, and I've been talking about this a lot recently, like letting it flow and like feeling things and letting yourself feel things in the moment, like very deeply.
Hmm.
My parents, I was doing this and I still have a really bad habit of doing it, but if someone does something to upset me or I like feel something, I'll just keep it away. Like I won't let myself feel it. I'm like I push it off and I act like I'm fine and it doesn't matter. And it'll stack up so much. And my dad calls it stacking chips, like poker chips on your shoulder.
Mm.
And he says like you're stacking them and like the stack's going to fall at some point. And that is definitely when I get the most attacks is cuz I have all these things like weighing down on me that I just like, didn't I didn't make a big deal out of it in the moment, but like I'm overthinking it like all week long until it just like finally topples over.
Hmm.
Which something that's helped me a lot with that is journaling, and that's my first thing, and it's one of my favorite things. I haven't done it much recently, and I want to get back into doing it. The second episode I ever posted of the podcast was about journaling, the whole thing. And I
Yeah.
just started doing it again after like the last 5 months. I haven't since we've been home. I've been awful about getting back into a routine. And so I'm hoping that that'll help me feel a little bit better because I know that when I do it, I feel much better.
Oh, I can agree. I am guilty of like not journaling for a while, but I know when I did because that was one of the recommendations that I got from doctors, both like the natural and the clinic doctors. They're like, write your emotions down, like write what you're feeling, like physical and emotional state, and you'll feel better. And it did definitely do a really big difference for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And with that, my second point is that you should be aware of the feeling. So for me, I didn't really implement this part until later in my anxiety journey because, like, I just didn't know what to do with that scary,
Right.
big feeling. But as I got older, and even now, like, I get a couple attacks here and there, but it's very, very rare. And um, yeah, I just become aware of the feeling like, okay, what, like, why am I feeling it? And like, what exactly am I feeling? And because it is in my mind, like, is there a way that I can maybe ease it on my own without freaking out?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it can be difficult, like we were talking about a minute ago, for young kids to like understand what they're feeling and why they're feeling it. And like when you learn about that and start to really understand how your body's feeling, I feel like it changes so much. Like you start to
Mm,
understand hunger cues or things, when I get that chest pain, maybe it's because I'm feeling anxious or, you know, a lot of people talk about like when your lips are dry in the morning, it's because you're dehydrated. And that's like something very literal and physical that you can feel easily. But when it's something related to mental health, it's harder to understand that and be aware of that.
Yeah.
And my next one is communication. I am awful, like I said, about speaking about how I feel, especially in the moment. And, there's two parts to this. There's one of like talking it out with people because sometimes, you're anxious about something that you don't need to be. And of course, like, it doesn't mean that it's not valid, but it's, you could easily clear up that anxiety, especially with social anxiety, by just talking to someone. And I also, if there's a situation I'm worried about, like when I record with guests, I like to make it very clear how things are going to go, or else I'll be anxious leading up to it. Like, do they understand? Are they going to have the right stuff? Do I have the right stuff? And is it going to be awkward? Do I know them enough? And making sure that everyone involved understands what's expected, like really makes me feel so much better and like is very relieving.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, yeah, like you said, like just making sure that people around you kind of know like what you're thinking relieves that like stress. So 100% agree.
Yeah.
My third point, it's kind of like a jumbled mess, but you kind of have to think it through, which is also like the being aware type of thing, but at the same time, like being logical and reassuring yourself. So for me, it's like if I get this irrational fear of like, I don't know, saying my food is poisoned, like that was like one of the biggest irrational fears when I was going through anxiety. And it's like, no, like my food is not poisoned. Why would it be poisoned? Like it is FDA approved. Like my mom cooked it with love. So there's no need to be scared about something. Like simply just looking up facts. And I also want to add, like, being if people are spiritual, like, maybe thinking, like, okay, God has my back. And if you're not spiritual, just thinking, okay, you know what? The universe, like, works in wonderful ways and it will happen the way it has to. And just kind of thinking in a way, like, whatever happens, happens, but in a positive aspect.
I love that. I can relate to the poison thing. I had my own version of that, which was like someone being behind the shower when I was showering. I
Mhm,
feel like,
yeah.
there's like the horror movie aspect of it, and I am a big true crime fan, and I have been since like early middle school. And right now I'm binging Criminal Minds, and there's some messed up stuff in there. And, you know, I have to remind myself, like, it's not super common. Like,
Yeah.
and like the doors are locked, and I think a lot of people do this and can relate to this is when you think that you lock the doors but you're not sure, so you double check and then you walk away from it and you're like, wait, did I is that locked? And you do it again and again. And it's like, in the back of your head, like, it's okay, like, I did what I needed to do, but that anxiety is gonna like stir that up.
Yes, definitely.
My last one is, everyone's gonna be so mad at me because I always say this, but spending time outside and in the outdoors. Everybody knows I love this. And I mean, it's one thing to like be outside, but like really being present in outside and focusing on the small details, right? I'm sitting in the Jeep right now and I can see the trees and I see birds and things like that, right? And
Mhm.
like being a content creator, when I'm outside, I always want to be recording. And sometimes you just need to put the phone away and like really pay attention to the small details, because that also is like, I don't want to say a distraction, but it does allow you to focus on something other than the things that are making you anxious.
Yeah.
I think that's all of our stuff today. Like I said, we had like a good solid like 30 minutes worth of stuff today. I feel like it was
Yes.
really good content. I'm glad with how today's episode turned out.
Me too.
Don't forget to look at all of her things in the episode notes. All the links will be there. The podcast, Instagram, all of those things will be in the episode notes.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for having me, Moana.
Thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun. I feel like we should do this again sometime. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to give this podcast a rate and review, as well as follow me on all my socials linked in the show notes. Don't forget to drink some water, and I'll talk to you later.